So, when answering the question, how big can it get, I think it's helpful to take a step back and look what happened when we started Wooga 4 years ago. So what we did is we went out onto the street and asked people, do you play games every day? And most people said, no, I don't. My children play, I used to play when I was younger, maybe my grandparents play, but it's generally the answer was a consistent no. However, when we went to look at other forms of entertainment, when we asked them, do you listen to music every day? Or do you watch videos every day? The answer was yes. And we thought that was strange, because playing is a core human need. In the end, everyone plays. It can be board games, it can be card games, all forms of entertainment. And we made a bet, in the end, that this would change, that gaming would stop focusing on the 18 to 28-year-old male and just become a mass market phenomenon. Especially in the last 2 years. I mean, Tim also gave some numbers on this. Gaming has become... Sorry about that. So, it's an old deck. So this is kind of the hypothesis we're working on, that everybody, every day, people will play games. And this is the style of games we make. So Pearl's Peril, for example, a hidden object game, very casual title, very American style, 85 to 90% females playing this title, or Jelly Splash, which is our newest hit, an arcade game. And what we've seen is that, especially in the last 2 years, and this is something Tim was also talking about, the market has become huge. Tim was saying about $15 billion per year. We've heard numbers of it being $12 billion. Whatever the number is, playing has just become a mass market phenomenon. Now, the market has a few problems, the biggest one of which is it's hits driven. So if you look at a single game, it's very risky. There's estimates, there's 4,000 new games coming out every month on the App Store. 4,000, that's over 100 per day. So if you then say a hit is a game which does tens of millions of dollars in revenue, the probability of one of those games becoming a hit is, I think, 0.2%. We calculated it. So what we focus on is the question, how can we increase our batting average? How can we turn more of our games into hits? And make it repeatable. Kind of think about the process, think about the knowledge, think about the skills. What can we do to repeatedly make hits? And if you look at our average, in the last 3.5 years, we've had 5 hits by using this definition of tens of millions of dollars in revenue. So there's other companies out there who rely on maybe 1 or 2 titles. We're a big believer in a portfolio approach. Now, how did we do that? Well, Wooga is about combining hearts and brains to make the best games. So I think gaming is something where you have to be, on the one hand, you need the passion, you need the creativity to really make good games. On the other hand, you need the brains, the analytics, and the A/B testing. But that's now on an individual game level. What we've done is, over the past, let's say, 2 years, developed a very streamlined approach how to make hits. And so what we'll do in any given year is create upwards of 60 concepts and prototypes. It's kind of hard to define what a concept and a prototype is exactly, where it stops, where it ends. But we have currently, to give you an idea, we have over 20 game teams just working on our pipeline, churning out concepts and prototypes. And then what we do is we go through a system of gates and review meetings, user testing, soft launches, etc., to kind of narrow this down to which ones we really want to launch. And of these 60 to 80 prototypes, we'll launch about 5. Now, this process, if I put a slide up, a very colorful one with friendly creatures, people always say, yeah, that makes sense. However, if you really get into it, this is a pretty tough process. You're stopping a lot of projects. People have put a lot of energy and heart into a game which you're stopping. And this is something we've had to learn also as a company, is how to embrace this change, this starting and stopping over again. But in the end, to launch 5 titles per year. And what we hope then to do is to have at least 2 hits per year. I mean, obviously, if 5 of 5 launches turn out to be hits, everyone's going to be super happy. But for us, it's more about the predictability of the output versus kind of betting the farm on one game. Now, that's kind of how we make games. And then once we see we have a hit, there's actually 3 components where we said we build teams around this to then make sure this hit gets as big as it can. And the first one is really globalize it. I mean, Rina gave an excellent presentation on how they customize their games for the MENA and Turkish markets. For us, a game like Jelly Splash, which is a very casual arcade-style game, we launched it in 22 languages. And it's sometimes a bit strange when you walk through the office and you see, actually as a company, we're 55% non-German. So you'll see people playing Jelly Splash in Turkish, in Korean, in Arabic, in Polish, in all these languages. So that's the first step of making it global. Now, people who are in the gaming industry will be a bit underwhelmed and say, "No, okay, it's translation, it's easy." Well, what we do is we go a step further. This is an example. We launched Jelly Splash for Kakao, a Korean messaging app, this week. Yesterday, it was the #1 most downloaded game on Kakao, and it's been customized for the Korean market all the way down to the marketing. So we looked at the sound, the graphics, the text, but then, and since I'm also responsible for marketing, this is a bit disconcerting, having people go out and book subway advertising in Gangnam Station. But this is an example of how then when we have a hit, we can roll it out globally across geographies. The second aspect is to make it grow fast. So when you have a hit, you want to grow it as fast as possible. And to us, that then has 2 components. On the one hand, we have our organic network, our user base of over 50 million monthly players who we can activate immediately. I just checked the statistics. We have over 30 million Facebook fans, which is more than Britney Spears, less than Lady Gaga. So we're still competing in that. But for example, more than Starbucks. So it really is a mass cultural phenomenon. So we can bring that power to a new title. But then the organic growth often isn't enough. So what you also need is user acquisition. And what we've built over the past year is an in-house ad trading desk with connections to over 50 ad networks, where we can then go out and buy installs on a CPI LTV basis, where it really makes sense, and spend a good amount of marketing money that way. Now, the third component is after we've launched a game, it's not done. That's really only the start. And what we do is we go into a very strict cycle of optimization. Behind me, this is just a graphic from an A/B test, just an example. And so what we do is, for our Flash games, we have new versions out every week, where we test new content, new features, maybe unlocking a feature for only 10% of the users, and see how our key metrics change. On mobile, due to the App Store dynamics, it's less frequently, but we try and do releases every 3 to 4 weeks there. And how this works out, so this is a graph for Monster World, one of our earlier games. Many gaming companies would have said, okay, it's at its peak now. But through A/B testing, you really can turn a game like this around and make it grow. So to summarize, we have the funnel, and then we have kind of tricks up our sleeves, how we can make games grow once we identify a hit. And where that's brought us as a company, 280 employees in Berlin, 55% non-German, so we're actually an international company in Berlin, profitable since 1.5 years with revenue growth, which looks hockey stick-ish. So, summarize it all up, Wooga combines hearts and brains to make the best games, and now turning that into a predictable process. And that's for us the answer, how big can it get? If we manage to predictably continue making hit games, it can get very, very big. Thank you.